Hello everyone, welcome again to our channel. Today we're going to design a church flyer, and I'm going to teach you how to design this flyer from scratch. So when you open your Adobe Photoshop, the first thing you do is that you go to a new file. When you click on new file, this pop-up menu appears, and then you're going to enter the title of our flyer. So you're going to call it church flyer. So we enter church flyer, and then our width and height customization is 5x5, and it's in inches. The orientation is portrait. The resolution is 300. Color mode is RGB, and the color profile you don't color manage, and then your pixel aspect ratio is square pixels. So we'll go ahead and create our file. After you create our file, the first thing I'm going to do is that we're going to create a group. So this group is going to be called the BG. Okay, good. So we call this BG. So for our BG, we need a solid color over here, and attached to this video there's a link in the description where I included all the files. You're going to find this txt file which tells you the BG color I used, so you could just go ahead and copy the color from here. So I come over here to the adjustment layer, and I choose solid color. So for my solid color, I'm going to paste it right here by pressing Ctrl V on my keyboard, and I click on OK. So after I do that, the next thing is that I'll bring in my pattern, my design pattern. Okay, it is included in the files. That is, the link is in the description. So I'll just grab it from over here, and then I'm going to paste it over here. So it lies on it perfectly for me. I'll change the blend mode to multiply, and when I change the blend mode to multiply, I'm going to reduce the opacity. I'm reducing my opacity, and I'm going to reduce my opacity to about 70%. I'm going to type in something over here, and before I type anything, I want to create a group for the texts, and I'm going to call these ones the header. So header, that will be the name of this group, and for this group it's going to be the header, the header of our flyer. So before I do anything, the font style I'm actually going to use for the header is the Angelic Child. Okay, so you can just go into my txt file, and then you copy the name, and then you come here, you paste it. Okay, so I'm going to use Angelic. So when you paste it, the pop-up options will come, Angelic Child will come. I'm going to use the regular fonts, and then for my font size, I'm going to maintain 72 pixels, about 32 pixels. Then you have to go back one step. For the color I would choose over here is white, so I just type in FFF, and then I do that. So after I do that, I cannot type in whatever I want to type in. So I'm going to come here, and then I'll just type in Sunday. I'll just type in Sunday. Okay, so I press the V, and then I'm going to drag this thing down whilst holding on my Alt key. Okay, let me bring it down a bit. So I press on my Alt key and I drag it down a bit, and then it creates a duplicate copy of it. You can also use Ctrl J to create a copy of your text. So I'm going to come here, and on the thumbnail of the text layer, I'm going to just double click on that thumbnail, and then I'm going to type here service. Okay, service. But for this one, I want the font to be about. So after I do that, this is it right now. I think it fits nicely under it. Okay, I want to place it right under it, so I'm going to use my arrow keys to position it. Okay, great. So you realize that the spacing between my text is a bit larger than how I actually want it to be. The spacing between my text is about 0, and I want it to be -10. Okay, -10 is fine. So I'm going to come here and change this one also to -10. Now after I do that, for this service layer, I'm going to reduce the fill to 0, and then I'm going to right click, go to blending options. When I go to blending options, I go to stroke, and for my stroke settings, just copy my settings. Okay, the size of my stroke is 6 pixels, the position is inside, the opacity is at 100, and then the fill type is color, and then this is the color. The color I used here is pure white, that's FFF color code, and then I just click on OK. So I need a glow for my text. Okay, So for the glow for my text, I'm going to work on my Sunday and then I'll work on the service. So for the Sunday, what I will do now is to create a duplicate copy of this Sunday text. So by pressing Ctrl+J on my keyboard, okay, I want to give this glow. That's why I'm doing this. So I press Ctrl+J, and then I'm going to convert this to a smart object. So I right click and convert to smart object. Alternatively, I have a keyboard shortcut where I just press Ctrl+dot. It's my own customizable shortcut that I made. So I press Ctrl+dot, convert this to a smart object. Now after this has been converted to a smart object, I will go to filter, I will go to blur, then I'll go to Gaussian blur. Now on my Gaussian blur, I'm going to increase this blur to about 8.1 or 8.2 will do, and then I just click OK. So this has come out nicely as I want it to be. So for this one, the glow is on the first layer of the text. Okay, I don't want it to be under, I want it to be on top. So it could be under, it could be on top, but I prefer my glow to be on top. So for this one too, I'll do the same thing. I'm going to press Ctrl+J, and then I convert this to a smart object by pressing on Ctrl+dot on my keyboard. You can right click and convert to smart object, by the way. After you do that, the next thing is that you go to filter. Your Gaussian blur is expected to be at the top here because it's your most recently used filter. Okay, but if yours is not appearing over here, you can just go to blur and then select Gaussian blur. But I'm going to select mine from over here. So I select Gaussian blur, and for this one, I'll reduce the Gaussian blur value. I'll reduce it totally to about 4.1. 4.1 would do. So now everything is looking neat, everything is looking how I want it to be. So with all my header, you just press Ctrl+T so that I center it on the center of the page very well. And then the next thing is I can press my shift key and then I bring it down, okay, so that it still maintains at the center. So I bring it down a bit. I think it's fine. Okay, so the glow is coming out too much, but I'm going to fix this later on. So at this point, I think I'm done with my BG text. So I'm going to close up my BG quickly. And so when I create my group, I'm going to call this one model. It's okay. So I'm going to bring my model in. So make sure your layers are always organized, like I'm being mine. You see, I'm creating a group for every single thing. Okay. So for my model, you'd see that I've extracted the image out of this one. Okay, I've done the extraction for you, so you could just use it. I'm going to attach the one with the remove background as part of the files, okay, so that it becomes simple for everyone. So I'm going to place it somewhere here. I want the hand to be between the I and the C. Yes, I think it's fine like this. And then yes, so now as my model has been brought in, I want to place it inside of this group. After I do that, for my model, I'm going to go into my camera raw settings. So I go to filter and then I go to my camera raw filter. You could use the keyboard shortcut Ctrl+Shift+A to bring up your camera raw settings. Okay, so when you go into your camera raw settings, then I would increase my texture to about 40. So let me increase my texture to about 40. After that, I'll increase my clarity to about 21, and then I'll just dehaze it a bit so that it pops out, the image pops out and looks great. Then I click OK. Good. So you realize that the camera raw settings has done the work initially for us. Well, it looks like this properties panel is blocking the screen. I'm unable to move out and see my panel very well. So I'm going to drag this one. I'm not going to close it. I'll just drag this thing and then I'll bring it here. Okay, good. So now I have a larger screen to work with. I'm going to put a glow around this person. Okay, I'm going to put a glow around this person. So to put a glow around this person, I'm going to come into my files, and then this is the file that puts the glow around the person. So I just have to scale it down. I'm pressing on the Alt key. I scale it down a bit. So since my glow has been brought in nicely, I don't like the yellow color of it. I want it to blend with the blue. So what I'm going to do is I'll go into my adjustments layer and then I'll go to my hue and saturation layer. When I go into my hue and saturation layer, what I actually do is I'm going to colorize it. Okay, so I make sure that I clip it to the glow. So I click on this one to clip it. Alternatively, you can come here and then press on your Alt key and then you click it over here. So whatever I choose to click it from here. After I clip it from here, I create a clipping mask from here and I've colorized it. I'm going to increase my hue to, let's say, 300. So I like the colors I'm seeing right now, but then let me increase the saturation. Let me bump it up to about 48 will do, and then let me increase the lightness. Let me increase the lightness to about I want it to be a bit whitish, but not too much. So 42, 44 is okay. So now I think I've got the color that I want. So with that, I would want it to encircle. I want to create the feel that the thing is going around and over the person, okay? And so I have to wipe up some part of it. Now there are many ways to do this thing, but then I'm going to use a simple trick to do mine, okay? So before I do everything, I'm going to just create a group from here. So I group this thing together and then I call it glow, small letters. So I call it glow and then I press Ctrl G to create a copy. And for the other glow, I bring it under the model, under the image, okay? So it's to be under the image. And then for the one on top, what I will do is I'm going to create a mask over it. When I create a mask over it, I'm going to press my B, okay, to enable my brush. I press on my Alt key, I right click on my mouse, and then I drag to the left to reduce the size of the mouse. At this point, I have to make sure that my foreground color is black. And then I'm just going to clean over here, okay? So here I can feel free and clean because there's an underlining layer that is protecting what I'm doing. All right, so I do that. Let me zoom in so that I see that I've done a very great work. Now my flow has been set to 100. Don't forget to make sure your flow is also set to 100. Now I'm going to come down over here. This thing is passing behind the subject, okay? It's passing behind, so it's going to look exactly like this. Very good. This is totally what I want. Now I realize that I want a glow over the subject, but the glow just vanishes from right here, so I'm going to draw my own. So from over here, what I'll do is that I'm going to select my pen tool from here, okay? So to the point where it vanishes, before I use my pen tool, I make sure that my fill is set to white and then my stroke is set to, I can pick a color from anywhere from here on my stroke. Okay, I choose the dress. I choose the dress to work with the dress, and then I went to the darker portions, okay, of the dress. Good. So something like this. Good. So after I've done that, now the next thing I'll do is I'm going to draw my path from here. So I'm just going to click some points from here, 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 and here. So now my path is complete. So with this, I'm just going to press on this one to release my my tool. So for this shape layer, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go into my filter and then I'll go into Gaussian blur. So filter, go to filter, go to blur, go to Gaussian blur, and then I convert to smart object. So I'm going to increase the blur to about 8. I see over here that the blur is too much, so I'll just reduce my opacity. I'll reduce my opacity to about 50%. 50% is okay. So now when you zoom in, you'd see that the glow is passing over the subject, but it's passing over the subject lightly. It's as light. If you want it, you don't want yours too deep, you could always reduce the opacity of the glow, okay? So after you've done that, realize that something important comes up. When the glow passes around the subject, you expect some lightning to fall on your model. But over here, we see that there's already a lightning on the subject, on the original image. And then this lightning is too light and you want to increase the lightning, okay? So you can come to your subject and then go to adjustment layer. From your adjustment layer, just choose solid color, okay? It's going to cover everything, I just realized. So what I will do is that I'll come here and set my foreground color to the color of the glow from the light rays. Okay, so I'm going to choose this color. I think this color will do. And then I come here, I go to solid color, and then it's already selected the foreground color. So you just click on OK. Now I'm going to press my Alt key and then clip it, or I can just right click and then click on create clipping mask. Okay, after the clipping mask has been created, you just want this at some portions. Okay, so you come here and then you press on Ctrl I to invert the mask. So you're going to brush this side so that, and it will be like the light rays is falling on the skin. Okay, but before I even do that, I'm going to change the blend mode for this one. I'm going to change the blend mode, but not yet. I don't know the blend mode which would work, so let me try brushing over it. You should make sure that your foreground color is set to white. Then before you brush over it. Okay, so whilst brushing over it, I just realized something, that the rays is falling on the earring. Okay, so you're going to work on that pretty soon. So from here, I'm going to change my blend mode to screen is great, color dodge is great, but I think I like this one, overlay. Okay, so I'm going to change my blend mode to overlay. So I'm going to remove some layers. I don't like the ones on the shirt, so I'll wipe it all off. Great. So if you feel like the color is too deep, what to actually do is that you could right click, go to blending options, and then when you go to blending options for underlining layer, just press on your Alt key and separate this. Okay, press on your Alt key on keyboard first and then left click and then drag to this side. Okay, you realize that it separates the bands into two. Okay, separate the bands. If you don't want the darker portions, too much of the darker portions, you can always drag like this. Okay, so I'm going to separate the bands very well, and then now, so let's see the before, after. Great. So after we've done that, like I said, the glow is falling on the earring, so I would want to clean this part of the glow. So I come here, I click on the mask layer, and then I make sure that my foreground color is set to black, and then I reduce the size of my brush, and then I wipe this part off nicely. So after I've done that, you realize that some of the light will fall on the shoulders. Okay, some of the lights will definitely fall on the shoulders. So I'll come here to this layer. I go to my adjustment layer. For my solid color, this time around, I'll select the whites. Okay. So when I select the white, I'll come here and then I invert the mask. When I invert the mask, I have to increase the size of my brush. So here I'm using the bracket keys on my keyboard to increase and to decrease the size of my mask. After I do that, I'm going to brush the shoulders. Okay, making sure that my foreground color is set to white. I brush the shoulders nicely. Then definitely the light will also fall on this part of the body. Don't worry if it is too bright. I'm going to change my blend mode to overlay, and then I'm going to separate the bands so that everything blends in nicely. Okay, so you go to blending, you press on your Alt key, then you separate the bands so that everything now comes out great. Then I click on OK. So at this point, I think I'm almost done working on this layer, but then I realized that the color of the hair, it looks somehow faded, maybe because I removed the background. So I want the hair to be pretty black, so I'm going to use a solid color to brush over the hair. But before I do that, I'm going to choose a solid color and choose the very black part of the hair. I think this one is fine. So with the very part black of the hair selected, I'm going to adjustment layer, go to my solid color, and then automatically select the color. Then I come here and I invert the marks by pressing on Ctrl I on my keyboard. Now I have to make sure that my foreground color is set to black, to set to white, sorry, and I brush over the hair. Okay, I brush over the hair. I want the hair to be pretty black. Make sure once you are working, you release your mouse once in a while. Okay, so I brush over the hair. After I'm brushing over the hair, I realize that my colors are too deep. So I'll reduce my opacity. I can reduce it to about 40%. So let's see the before after. Great, now the hair is looking as great as I wanted it to be. Now that I'm working on the hair, I press on my Z key to release my brush and then to go back to my move key. So this is somehow you can use the V key. It's a shortcut on your keyboard, okay, to always move back to your move key. Now at this point I realize that the blue, I don't like the tone of the blue. Okay, I don't like the tone of the blue, so I'm going to go over here and then I'm going to bring in a hue and saturation adjustment layer in order to correct my colors. Okay, so I click on hue and saturation over here, and what I'll do is I'll colorize the whole page. Okay, then for my hue I'm going to move into the blue section. I think this would be okay. And then for my saturation, I bump it up. Okay, so let me bump up my saturation to about 68. I think 68 will be fine. And let me reduce my lightness. Okay, so sometimes you realize that this is too deep when you don't want it like this. You could always come to your opacity and then reduce the opacity of the hue and saturation layer. So I'm going to reduce my opacity to about 28. I think 28 is fine. 28 brings out the colors very well. So when I realize that now my design has moved from this to this. Great. So you realize that sometimes you have to just look back, look at your design a second time, and then you correct a few things as you move along. Now I want to bring an angelic feel to this model. Okay, so right under the model, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to put something behind the model. Okay, so what I'm going to put behind the model is this halo. I'll put one of the halos behind the model, so something like this, and then let me bring it down a bit by pressing on my Alt key, and then I'll change my blend mode from normal to overlay. Won't work from normal to screen, but I realize that there are some edges over here which I really don't want. You know, these edges that were there coming from the back. So on this layer that I brought in, that is this one, I just press Ctrl L on my keyboard to bring up my levels adjustment layer. Alternatively, you can also come down here. Okay, adjustment layer, I choose levels. So for my levels adjustment layer, I'm going to drag it into it and making sure that I've clipped it on only that layer. So once you are drag, you realize that the edges fade off, and then the glow behind the image is the only thing that remains. You can also drag this one. This one's actually brighten the glow. I don't want it to be brightened, so I think I'll leave it as this. And then I press Ctrl T, making sure that I bring my glow down a bit. So the glow behind the person gives off this angelic view, like the person is having an experience. So at this point I realized that my glow over here, the lightening is a bit too much. So let me just reduce the lightening. Okay, good. So I've reduced the lightening nicely. Now the next thing I'm going to do is that at this point I've seen that I'm done working on the model. So since I'm done working on the model, I can close the model up. I'll just close my model up, close up my BG, and make sure that my layers are well organized. So I'm not going to work on the extra layers. So the extra layer I'm going to work on first is the logo. Okay, so I bring in my logo, making sure that it's at the very top of all the layers, and then I scale it down for it to be very small, and then I bring it up here. So at this point I'm just going to type in the name of the church. Okay, so I press on my type key on my keyboard. I don't type yet. At this point, the font that I would use for the name of the church is Montserrat. So I copy Montserrat and I paste it here, and then I make sure that out of the options that come up, I select black. Okay, and the font size that I used is 8. so font size of 8, and then I think at this point I can just go ahead and type. No, the color of fonts that I use here is white, so I'll just type in F 3 times, F, and I press enter. So let me zoom in so that I see it's clear. So I'm going to be typing Dominion City. I press on my V key so that I position it very well. Then I press on my Alt key, I drag this one down whilst clicking on my left button. And then I'm going to double click on the thumbnail to change it to Andreso, Pillar 2. So this time around, I'm going to come into my properties, and then change it from black to medium. Okay, and I'll reduce my font to 6. Okay, so I'll select this layer, and then with my arrow key I position it. I know that it might not position very well. I mean the alignment, I want it to perfectly align to the left, so I press on Control key and then press on the Dominion, and then in my alignment options that come up over here, I'll just choose the left align option so that it all aligns to the left. And for the logo, I'll resize it so that it fits well, and then I press this one. So everything is looking okay now. Let me just give some space over here. I realize that this font is a bit too small, so I'm going to increase my font a bit to about maybe 6.7 would do. Yeah, 6.7 would do, so that it's a bit big enough. And then at this point I have to check my alignment once again. So I select this layer 2 and then align everything to the left. Great. After I've done that, I'm going to go into over here, select all this layer, press on the shift key, and then select the last item over here so that it selects all of them. And then I'll drag this here and group all this, and then I'm going to call this one the logo. Okay, so I call this one the logo. So right now I'm done working on a lot of things. The next thing that I'm going to work on, create a new group, call this one info. So for this info, I'm going to create a rectangle over here. For this rectangle, I don't want any stroke, and then the color could be set to white, because after all I'll choose an overlay over it. So I draw it nicely. Now the border radius should be about 5 pixels, not too much. Yes, 5 pixels will do. And then if you feel like your rectangle is too small or too big, you can always adjust your rectangle. So I think over here I've adjusted it enough, and this is nice. So after I've adjusted it nicely, the next thing I will do is that I'm going to come here into my layers, go to your adjustment layer, and then just choose not gradient map. You're just going to choose gradient. Okay, so for your gradient options, you're just going to come down here. You can double click over here so that it becomes simple for you. Okay, so now this gradient has been created over all the files, and I don't want it to be created over all the files, so rather come here to my FX, and then I choose gradient overlay, so that it just overlays this rectangle. Okay, so I can double click over here, and then in my purples, so in my presets, I'm going to go into my purples, and I'll select the second one. So I select the second one, and I click OK, and then I make sure it's not reverse. Make sure it is not reverse. Mine was reversed before. Your angle could be set perfectly to 90. Okay, so you want to change this to 90, and then your scale is at a mask 150%, so that it blends out nicely. Your blend mode is normal, then you click on OK. So now created my nice gradient overlay over this rectangle. So I want to create a duplicate copy. So I press on Alt and then I drag this thing down. And then I want this one to be so much smaller. Okay. So I press on my Shift key and then I drag it down. I bring it up a bit. I press on my Shift key again. I press on my Shift key so that it stays in its original vertical position. And then with my arrow keys, I can bring it up a bit. And I don't like the gradient on the copy of the rectangle, so I'm going to double click on my gradient tool overlay, and over here I'll go into blues. Okay, when I go into blues, I'll come down here and then I'll select this one. Yes, I think I like this one. But this time around I'll reverse it. Okay, so when I reverse it, then I click OK. So I think everything is looking a bit great as I wanted it to be. So I'm just going to go ahead and then I'll just type in the text that will be over here. So the first text I'll type in over here is the Sunday. Okay, but before I type in anything, I have to come here and then look at the fonts I used. The font I used for this heading is the Assassin font. Okay, so I'll right click, I'll copy it, and I'll come here and then I'll paste it. So that's the font. And then the font size I'll use is I like 11. Let's see how 11 looks. I think this one is great. I might increase it to about let's say 11.5. And then for this text, I'll just type Sunday. So for this text, the spacing between the text is too big. I want to reduce it, so I'm just going to drag over here and reduce my spacing to about 140. I think 140 is fine. Press on my V key so that I move it about perfectly aligned to the center. Now for the rest of the text, I'm not going to use the same font. I'll use a different font. So I'll come here and then I'll just click here. It's not the same font I'm going to use. It's not the same spacing. Okay, this time around I want to use the Poppins font. I really love Poppins. Poppins, Montserrat. Maybe I are friends with designers. So I come here, I paste my Poppins. For the Poppins that I will use, this one I'm going to use Poppins regular. So I just click on the regular, and then my font is going to be a bit bigger. Okay, I think 18 will do. No, changed this one. Oh, okay, I think I have to do it this way. So Poppins, Poppins regular, font 18. Yes, and then I'll type in the date second. This time around the spacing is too big. I want my spacing to be about -75. Yes. Okay, I want to add the dots, so I'll just add the dots, and then I press on my V key and then I bring it up a bit. Okay, so I press on my Alt key and I drag this thing down. Okay, when I drag it down to enter the month, but for the month I've changed this one to semi-bold, and then I'll change this one to May. Then I drag it down again. I press on Alt and hold. Then I double click on the thumbnail and then I just type in 2035. So we're going to bring this down a bit. So at this point there's a problem with the distribution and the spacing, so I'll select all the layers. When I select all the layers, I can always align all of them to the left from over here, but I want equal spacing between the texts. So I come here to the 3 dots. Now for the distribute spacing, I'm going to select first this one. Okay, so this one's going to distribute, make sure there's equal spacing between all the texts. Great, I think it's looking great. Okay, now the last thing I'm going to do inside of this box is that I'm just going to just draw a small box over here. For this one, I'm going to do a gradient overlay too from over here. But before I do a gradient overlay, I don't want any border radius here. So I press on my V key so that I release it. Okay. Now, so for this one, I'll come here, do into my adjustment layer, go to gradient overlay, and for the gradient overlays, I'll select this one. I like this one. It has been reversed already. Okay, you can choose not to reverse, but I like the reverse style. And then after doing just that, I would come. I think I could drag this one. Okay, I'll drag this one and then I'll just type in beat, and then I press on Ctrl T. I reduce the size by using my Alt key. I bring it down. Now this has been centered nicely. Okay, after I finish typing in that one, I see that from this one to this one, the text look a bit too small. I want to increase the size of it, so I'll use my Alt key and then I read it down a bit. I think now it looks okay. Great. So if you feel like you don't want it too big, you can always leave yours like this. Okay. So you let me leave mine like this. It seems like this one looks bigger than the rest, so I'll reduce the size. Great. Now, so for this rectangle, the text over it will just be 8AL. So I'm typing outside of it, and then I will drag it inside so that it is placed nicely. Now, the last but one thing I could do over here is always when I'm done with my flyers, I like to bring in some elements that would just beautify my flyer. Okay, so I have this wrapper over here. I'm going to just bring my wrapper in over here. This wrapper is just going to do something cool. I'm going to show you in a few seconds. So I'll just place it right somewhere here, and then I'll make sure that the wrapper is placed on this rectangle. Okay, and then it's actually clipped on it. So before I clip it, I'm going to change the blend mode for this one to screen so that you see what I'm about to do. Okay, good. So once it has been changed to the screen, now when it has been clipped on it, it is not showing, and the reason why it is not showing is because this gradient has caused an overlay over it. Okay, so I want to create a new layer out of this gradient, so I right click and then I just click on create layer. Okay, so when I do that, now my wrapper design is showing. So this wrapper is giving me some sharp edges which I don't want. So for the wrapper, I'll just press Ctrl L to reduce the levels. Yes, like this, and then I just click OK. If you feel like your levels are too much, you could reduce it. Yes, I think it's okay like this. Okay, so I'm going to just wipe off some parts of it by creating a new mask and then making sure that my foreground color is set to black, and then I wipe off some of the sharp edges so that it's not too sharp. Okay, I really like doing these minute things to my final flyer. Yes, it just makes my flyer look nicer, you know. So I can just Ctrl J this one. So I copy my wrapper and then I put it on top of this rectangle. And then when I put it on top of this rectangle, I'm going to right click and then create a clipping mask. So here I have to create a new layer out of the gradient overlay so that my overlay doesn't overlay the wrapper, it doesn't cover the wrapper. Okay, good. So I do that, and then now my wrapper is here, so I'm going to press Ctrl T and then I move it somewhere here. So on a mask layer this time around, I have to wipe off the top parts, the two bright parts, and the ones on the text. Good. So after doing that, like I always say, the background is a bit too blank for me, and I always like to bring in some extra stuff which brings out the whole beauty of my flyer. So over here under the texts, okay, I can put it above, I can put it below. This time I'll not put it below, just over the hue saturation. Okay, so I'll bring in this layer, and I'll bring it somewhere here so that it looks like the light is falling on the header text. And I'll change this one's blend mode to screen. I press Ctrl L to reduce the levels so that the sharp edges all vanish. And then I'm just going to create a layer mask over this one. I press on B to enable my brush. I use my arrow bracket keys on my keyboard to increase the size of my brush, and then I wipe off this part, making sure that my foreground color has been set to black. I just want the light to fall on it lightly. Good. Let me reduce my levels. Seems like the light is still too much. Good. After this has been done, then it seems like everything has been done, but I have to make the design pop. And to make your design pop, there are several ways you could do that, but the method I always choose to use is to balance out my colors. So on top of the very top layer, I come here and I go to color balance. When I go to color balance, for my mixed tones, I'm going to reduce my reds to about -14. I'll maintain this, and then I'll go towards the blue over here. And then for my shadows, I'm going to go also towards the blues. Okay, not too much. And for my highlights, I go towards the blues also. And then I go towards the magenta. There's a bit of magenta in it, so I just increase my magentas, but not too much. I can also increase my reds over here. After doing that, it looks like my design is a bit too bright, so I'll just go into my curves adjustment layer. I go to curves, and then I reduce the contrast a bit from over here. So this one's, it darkens the darker area. Okay, anything down here darkens the darker areas, and anything here brightens the brighter areas. So when I do that, realize that now my design is popping out very well. My color balance is too much, so let me just reduce my color balance and let me reduce my opacity. Good. Now my design is looking great. Now the final thing I want to do is I'm going to create a snapshot of everything. Control Shift Alt and E. I'm creating a snapshot because I don't want to do any edits that affect the individual layers, the individual elements of the design. Okay, when I do that, then I'll convert this to a snatch objects by right clicking, or like me, I always use my control dots on my keyboard. So after creating my snapshot, I'm going to go into filter, and then I'll go to filter gallery, and when the filter gallery opens up, I'm going to do some nice edits from over there too. So here I'm going to go to green. Okay, so you have a lot of options: artistic, distort, and all that. Come to texture, come to green. Make sure to reduce your intensity to 60 and your contrast to 60. From the options over here, make sure that it's green that you're choosing. Okay, you're choosing the option to green. There's a lot of options over here, so once you choose green and press OK. Good. So now let's see the before, after. Okay, before, after. Now if you feel like the green is too much, you can always come here and reduce your opacity. Okay, just reduce your opacity, and ta-da, your flyer is done. So this is how I designed this flyer in Adobe Photoshop. I hope you enjoyed this video, and make sure to subscribe to this channel. Make sure to like this video and share this video with all your friends. Thank you so much for watching and see you in the next tutorial.